What's up guys, Subzeroark here, back for another deck profile video. In this one, I'm profiling Dark Worlds as built by Nick, aka akaRickyParis, aka RickyParis. It's a very solid build, one you should definitely try out if you're looking into playing Dark Worlds, which is a deck that really hasn't seen a lot of play despite the fact that it really should. It's a great deck, it's just that it doesn't see a lot of play, so that's odd. It's mostly standard, but there are a few things about it that really make it different and really make it great. So, I'll do a quick rundown of the deck, mostly standard, so I won't, spend a bunch of time on things, but yeah. Brow, you get him, special summon him, and then bounce him back to get Grafa. Brow, he gets, well, beige, sorry. Brow, you discard him to draw an extra card, usually 2, with like gates, or drag down, or dealings. Grafa, of course, the boss monster of the deck. When you discard him, he pops a card, and if you have a Dark World on the field, you can bounce that Dark World back to your hand to special summon Grafa from your graveyard. Very good card. Very good card. Kinda broke. Sorta. Not really. Snow, when discarded, searches through the deck, and you can also use it to beat down stuff. As with gates, it goes up to 2000 attack, and you can summon it for Grafa. Tour Guide is a great card in this deck, being that if you are not drawing well, you can summon a Tour Guide, grab something, and then go into Zen mains, or if you have a Grafa engrave, you can summon a Tour Guide, special summon a Brow, bounce that Brow back to your hand to get Grafa, and then use something like Gates to discard that Brow and get the extra draw. Very good. Trance Archfiend is, another play. Miss with Tour Guide, because I'm just rushing through this beating of the deck profile. Summon Tour Guide, get a Brow, overlay into Levier, and get back like a Snow that you've banished with Gates, so it's a really great card. Trance Archfiend, you can discard a Dark World from your hand, pretty much, and it gains 500 attacks, so you might be able to pop something with Grafa and have this 2000 attack monster. One of the best things about it is when it's destroyed, you get one of your banished Dark Worlds back to your hand, which allows you to get stuff that you banish with Gates, or like a Grafa that got bottomless or deprisoned. It's a very good card. Card Destruction, well, it's a very good card in Modesty. God, I can't believe I keep skipping back and forth over stuff. It's a very good card in Modesty, because, like, you don't want to run a ton of these, because, as much as you like discarding outlets, this deck has a lot of them already, and this card can be a problem because it can conflict with drag down to the grave, because usually when you have drag down, you want to set all of your spell and traps and only have Dark Worlds in your hand, so your opponent is forced to make you go plus and make them go minus. With Trance Archfiend, if you're holding this card and you've already normal summoned this turn, you can't really do that with drag down. You just have this Trance Archfiend sitting in your hand, and if you also have Tour Guide, then there's no way you're going to be able to use drag down this turn, which slows down the deck. So he can be slow, which is why he's run only at 1, because multiples can get annoying. Card Destruction is a very good card, just because it discards everything you want in your hand. You know, a really nice play will be, first turn you'll have a few things, like maybe a couple Brows and a Snow, and then you'll set a few spell traps, activate this, and go +3, and you'll completely screw with your opponent. You'll also get to see what they're playing, which is a very nice thing about this deck, is that a lot of the time you get to see what they're running, you get to look at information about their deck, which is really useful. So yeah, that's what Card Destruction does, basically. Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, and Heavy Storm are of course staples, and our discarding outlets are triple Dark World dealings, triple drag down to the grave, and triple the Gates of Dark World. Now, this deck has a lot of discarding and drawing power, as these cards all discard and draw. Dark World Dealings is a nice just discard card if you already have Gates out. Gates is a very good card to get early game if you can, and just keep it there. Hopefully your opponent isn't playing like Gravekeepers or Unity, or, something with a field spell, because you want to keep this thing up as long as possible, and, MSTs can also hit it, so you might want to keep one in reserve, but really this deck runs so quickly that even if your opponent pops it and you aren't holding one in reserve, you'll be able to get one quickly. So, yeah, it's a great card. It lets you draw, then banish, and banishing isn't great, but it can make very fun plays with Leviair and Transarch Fiend, getting stuff back that you've banished. And of course, you know, the drawing and the discarding is very good. Plus, you know, bumping Graph up to a 3000 monster, Snow up to a 2000, Beige up to a 1900, and Brow up to a 1700 is all very, very good. Of course, it does things for these as well, but 1300 isn't great. 2300 or 1800 can be very good for Transarch Fiend, though. So yes, it's a very good card. This card, of course, is good when you already have gates out, or just to, you know, get yourself going, continue moving with your plays. And Drag Down is a great card to use first turn, because you get to see what your opponent's running, and you get to discard one of the main threats, you know, maybe Monster Reborn or Heavy Storm that you weren't happy about. It's just a really good card, and it puts you in control. It lets you see what your opponent has, see everything they've got, know what they're probably going to do, and then take out a piece of their strategy, which is really amazing. It also makes your opponent usually have to discard Dark World from your hand, so it's also something else that speeds up the deck. Foolish Burial, even if this card was at 3, I'd run it at 1, because you need it rarely, but when you do, it's very useful, because this deck can have trouble starting up, getting stuff in the grave for gates, and Grapha, and getting, you know, Graphas in the grave. So this is a very good card, you know, to, you know, you're holding this in a Brow, and say, you know, Foolish Burial a Grapha, summon the Brow, bounce the Brow, get a Grapha out, and then gates the Brow, and then, you know, you've got all this stuff going. Or even if, you know, you wanted to do something a little less offensive and just, you know, Foolish Burial a second Brow so you can banish and discard your other Brow, that works as well. It's just, it's a versatile card in this deck because of Grapha and gates, and it's a very good card. Upstart Goblin helps speed up the deck. That's pretty much it. Some people may not like the fact that it gives your opponent back life points, but really, this deck can take life points away in swings of 3000 with Grapha, so really, 1000 life points doesn't matter in the long term. Compulsory Activation Device is this card's only defense, and that's all this deck needs. This deck is hyper offense, and that's fine, because this deck can just keep coming back with cards like Grapha, and it can also stop your opponent's attacking forces with other cards. So, and Compulse is a very good card when your opponent's stuff does get out of hand. You know, they make a Zen Mains and you need to get over it, or, you know, they make something like a Scrap Dragon or trying to pop your stuff. Like, Compulse is there to get rid of their stuff. And, you know, even if they have a normal monster, not a normal monster, because hell, no one's gonna play a normal monster, but, you know, like a normal effect monster that you need to get rid of before it gets an effect off or something, Compulse is there to do that as well. The two viruses are the main thing that makes this deck different from other Dark World builds. The main reason I wanted to play this specific build of the deck is because akaRickyParis, or Ricky Paris, whatever you want to call him, went to one of those tournaments that DN has, like, every once in a while, and won it with this deck, and nearly, I think at least one game out of every match he played, he would use Deck Devi, or Eradicator Epidemic Virus to just take away all of his opponent's resources, and at some point, they would have no cards in hand. And the thing about Dark Worlds is that Dark World is a very hard deck to deal with when you have cards in hand. It's a very hard deck to deal with when you have your Mirror Forces and your Dark Holes and all that stuff, because it just keeps coming back with stuff like Grapha and its insane drawing power. When you get rid of your opponent's, you know, Tour Guides and Rabbits, or, you know, all their wind-ups, or their, you know, their Dark Holes, their Heavy Storms, their, Reborns, anything, you know, their factories, the deck is very hard to deal with because you just have nothing left. And also, if you're going really offensive, you want to push, you can Eradicate our Epidemic Virus and declare traps, and then suddenly their entire back row pretty much flies away, and you get to look at their hand, which is another great thing about this card. And Deck Devies, you get to look at their hand for 3 turns, which pretty much lets you know exactly what they are going to do, and tells you everything. And also, if you eradicate or Epidemic Virus, and they have 1 card in hand, and you know, you find out that it's a useless monster. So say they have 1 monster, one card in hand. Well, let's just go with another dumb example that may or may not happen to you. They have no back row. They have 1 back row. You discard Grapha to pop it. You summon a monster, bounce back, get Grapha. They have nothing on field. You attack into them. Attack for 3,000. Then you pass over to their turn. Flip Eradicator, Epidemic Virus, and Tribute Grapha, and declare spells. They only have 2 spells in hand. They're both discarded. They have nothing. They pass to you. You summon a Dark World, bounce back, Graph attacks directly. Their turn. They draw a spell. They have to discard it, and their draw has been negated. A great thing about this card and Deck Devi is that it takes some of your most potent cards and just makes it as if you haven't drawn that turn, and just throws them into the graveyard, which is really, really good. They're also very good with, in tandem with Grapha. Like, if you'll bring out if you like, summon Brow, bounce, summon Grapha, and then they bottomless, you chain Deck Devi, or you chain Eradicator Epidemic, and since chains resolve backwards, you tribute Grapha beforehand, so that Grapha goes to the graveyard before Bottomless kicks in to banish him, and so then he's back in the graveyard, and you've dealt damage to them. So very, very, very good cards. Of course, run them in Modesty, because if you aren't doing well, they are very bad. This card can be used with something like a Snow under Gates, but it's very rare that it happens, and this card pretty much has to be used exclusively with Grapha. Mind Crush is another discarding outlet. You can either use it for discarding, or what's fun is, you know, do something like Drag Down, or use Eradicator Epidemic Virus, and then Mind Crush something next turn, and they're just like, wow. Or, very fun thing to do, is, you know, you'll attack into a Sangan, they'll be like, okay, Sangan, search, add Rescue Rabbit to hand, flip Mind Crush, declare Rescue Rabbit, they have to discard it, and then you also get a look at their hand. It's just a really great card. Overall, it gives you information, and lets you discard, and discards other cards, you know, if you need to. Reckless Greed, just another thing to speed up the deck, and Solemn Judgment, a card that pretty much, you destroy most of your opponent's cards that would stop you, but if they have a card that might, you know, still set after everything you've done, you can solemn it. Or, you know, if you're in a tough spot, you can solemn their monster summon, or, you know, Reborn or something like that. So yeah, that's the deck. Pretty standard. I've explained nearly everything that I want to, so I think I'm just going to move on to the side now. This is mostly by akaRickyParis, except for the first card here, which I will leave for last. So I'll go backwards. Skill Drain, very good card, because most of these cards, bar TGU and Transarch Fiend's first effect, all resolve in hand and in grave. Well, resolve in grave. You use them in your hand, and so Skill Drain doesn't really hurt them, whereas it hurts a lot of other decks, so that's why you run Skill Drain. Royal Decree is a very good card, just if your opponent's, you know, running something dumb, like, Chain Burn or something like that. That's mainly for that. Gazan Match is for stuff like wind-ups, you know, wind-ups mainly, that's what Gazan Match is for, and, you know, all your monsters are dark, that's all you ever run, so there's, no way it's gonna backfire. Extra viruses, I know akaRickyParis has said, you know, Deck Dev is definitely a great card decided against stuff like Dino Rabbit and wind-ups, just because 90% of their deck has less than 1500 attack. Well, wind-ups is what I'm really thinking of for that. And then, you know, stuff like Eradicator, Epidemic, or did I say Deck Devi? I don't remember. Stuff like Eradicator, Epidemic Virus can be used on other decks that are more, you know, spell heavy, like Diamond Dude Turbo, which is the next hit deck, so, yeah, everyone start siding for that. Dark Smog is very good against other Dark World players, just to, you know, banish their Dark World so they can't get, gates, and, you know, just a lot of other decks that rely on the graveyard, like Chaos Dragons and such. Triple MST is for those decks that use cards or side in cards that are gonna mess with your Dark World, so, stuff like Shadow Imprisoning and Macrocosmos, that's what the MSTs are for. And then the final card is a card that is anti-Dark World, because Dark Worlds have big problems with other Dark Worlds, mostly because if you activate Dark World Dealings, and you discard a card, or you activate Dark World Dealings and your opponent discards a card, you get the Dark World secondary effect, which no one ever reads, but like, look at Grapha's. You look at a random card in your opponent's hand, and if it's a monster, you get it to your side of the field. Like, it's crazy stuff. And like, other stuff, like, you never read these, because they never come into play. Like, Snow gets you a monster back, or gets an opponent's monster. A lot of this stuff is just special summoning opponent's monsters. Like, it's just a really, like, Brow becomes, instead of just usually being a +1, becoming a +2, they're really great effects. And the Dark World Mirror Match can be very bad if your opponent gets a lot of these off. So, my card of choice to play against Dark World is Rainbow, Overlord of the Dark World. He has no Dark World effect as far as getting discarded by your card effect. If it was discarded by opponent's card effect, firstly, you special summon it from the graveyard, and then it gets special summoned. You can destroy all monsters or all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. Just a card to wipe your opponent's field clean and give yourself a big beater. It is a very fun card to play with. There are definitely other cards you can side against Dark Worlds, like that weird cat card when it's discarded by opponent's card effect, ends your opponent's turn, stuff like that. There's definitely other stuff you can side. I just side this card because it's really fun and it's Dark World. It's just kind of a fun choice, so not 100% serious. But yeah, that's the side. Moved on to the extra. It's mostly standard. Gaga Cowboy is a great new card, you know, that can just give you that last little push to go for game. Gem Knight Pearl can swing over stuff like Stardust, so that's why he's in there. Hieratic Sun Dragon, Lord of the Heliopolis, is another great card because, he's kind of superfluous in the fact that you already have 2,000-3,000 Graphas out, and you probably don't want this guy, but he can definitely be a fun card. You can have great fun with this card just by overlaying and going into him, you know, and going for game. So he's definitely superfluous and not necessary, but he's a very fun thing. You know, the game's about fun. Levier, of course, I talked about this card already. It's a very good card for getting back banished Dark Worlds. Maestro, best level 4 Xyz, rank 4 Xyz in the game. Stringtion, he's kind of like a mini acid golem that when he attacks, you can double his attack, but it doesn't stop you from special summoning, so that's good. Neon Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, another superfluous card that can win you the game when you go into it, but you're probably not going to go into it. You know, when your opponent's got like an obelisk on field and you have 3 Graphas on field, you're overlaying into this time. And when that happens, I swear, you'll be saying, oh, I thank Subzeroark and akaRickyParis for telling me to run this card. Leviathan Dragon, very good, just solid rank 3 Xyz. Giga Brilliant can be better than Leviathan Dragon in situations where you have multiple monsters on field and you can end up gaining 1500 attack just all the way across the board. Acid Golem, just swing over stuff and, you know, get this card off the board eventually, and even pop it with your own Grapha maybe. Utopia, like, really extremely standard rank 4 Xyz. Pablo Operative, just for dealing damage, you know, forcing your opponent's face-down monsters face up and then ramming them with a graph is a great feeling. Roach, very good against the Chaos Dragons matchup, which this deck has trouble with. Temtempo, probably one of my favorite rank 3 Xyzes, just because of how diverse it can be and how it gets past Zen mains. And Zen mains, just, I already talked about this earlier, but just to wall up and wait, stop your opponent from doing things while you try to draw into more stuff. So that's the entire deck. Any other questions and comments can go in the comments. Just a note, I got this deck from akaRickyParis. Did not change a single thing, because in playtesting it for like half a month to a month, you know, I've been playtesting it for a while on and off. I did not change a single thing. The deck is that good. If you can find a problem with it that is, you know, indisputably bad, then you definitely tell me in the comments, because that is something I'd like to hear about. But overall, like, really, this deck is close to perfection. Go try it out yourself. It's a very fun, good deck to play. Don't play it too often, though, because, well, playing any deck too often, you'll get sick of it eventually. But, yeah, that's been the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next deck profile. Bye!